Hey guys, Brett LaSala here at TBM Brakes today. We have an important Tech Tip Tuesday for you about brake fluid.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Tech Tip Tuesday. It's been a while since we've had a Tech Tip Tuesday, but this one's important. We've been racing a lot, and now we got Brett on the team. We've come up with a lot of ideas for Tech Tip Tuesdays, so we're hoping to fill these in on a weekly basis going forward. And today's is very important because it relates to something Brett just experienced himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Doug said, we want to bring more back. And a lot of these just come from things that we run into because, as you know, we race a lot of different cars and we're at the track a lot, right? So brake fluid is probably one of the most important parts of the brake system.
Yeah, I mean, a brake, we can give you guys the best brakes on the market, but if you don't have adequate pressure with proper master cylinder sizing and pedal ratio, and then brake fluid.
Right, the hydraulic pressure is created from the hydraulic fluid.
Yep.
And I'll be honest, I am very, very thorough with my car and my maintenance programs, and certain things I tend to procrastinate on a little too much because maybe I feel like they don't matter. And this weekend, it was brake fluid.
Yep, so this pertains to any style brake system. Road race guys are very good at this because, quite frankly, they have to stay on top of it. But us drag race guys, street car guys, usually not quite. You just don't think about brake fluid very often. You pour it in, the brakes are working good, and then you don't really think about it. And as these cars get heavier and faster, this is a perfect example, 3,000 pounds going 220 to 30 mile an hour, you start to, run into things that you wouldn't run into previously. And like a lot of stuff, you don't think about it until it becomes a problem. So Brett came to me this weekend and said, hey, my brakes don't seem to be working as good as they used to. And, sometimes you'll hear that. And again, this isn't brake specific, but you're like, unless there's brake fluid pouring out on the ground or you don't have pads left, that's really not possible. So we started looking at it, and I said to Brett, when's the last time you changed the brake fluid? Like, how long ago was that?
It was when I put this car together. I don't even want to admit it, but I mean, that was a year and a half, almost 2 years ago.
Yep.
And we've had multiple stops without parachutes where the brakes were literally glowing and we were boiling brake fluid. And after that race, I'm like, oh, I need to change brake fluid. Then you get busy and all this stuff happens and you don't change it, and then you keep going.
And even under normal operating conditions, say you have a bracket car, a dragster, just a car you take out and street strip, eventually that heat is going to break down the hydraulic fluid, which is essentially brake fluid, and over time it starts to degrade, and you'll start noticing the brakes go away. A lot of times it gets blamed on the pads or the rotors or the calipers, but the more times than not, it's the brake fluid. I've seen it 3 or 4 or 5 times this year with high-profile cars. People come back, man, I've always had great brakes, but now they're not working good. When's the last time you changed them? Oh man, probably 2 years ago. And they're always fast cars like yours.
Absolutely.
And if you think about DOT 5.1, which is what we recommend, the Extreme 6 brake fluid, it has a wet boiling point of 356 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a lot. But I know you've gotten it there because for metal to glow bright orange and transparent, it's in the thousands of degrees. So that heat is going to transfer through the pad, into the caliper, into the fluid, and eventually, after enough times, it breaks down.
Right, and you may look at your reservoir and you're like, oh, the fluid still looks clear, but it's not necessarily circulating because the fluid in the caliper is still the one that was at that temperature that you can't see. You crack the bleeder and it's pretty black. And what happened to me was, I used to say, like, you wear with your car, right? Because I drive this car all the time. Slowly it started losing brake pressure. It wasn't anything drastic, but I actually have it on my dash of brake pressure because I use it when I set my line lock. And like first pedal pump would always be like 100 PSI, like a light pedal. And it was like 40 or so. And I just started, but I think it slowly got to that point where you didn't even know it was happening. And then it was like, hey, we need to do something about this.
Yeah, so I always tell people you need to have a brake pressure sensor just like you need to have an oil pressure sensor. It's an important function of your car. And like he said, if you start paying attention to it like you do oil pressure, it would make more sense. A proper brake system needs 600 to 800 PSI on a normal pedal, push. Maybe not a light one like you're talking about.
Yeah, this was just like a light push. But yeah, like a firm push, it goes right to 1,000.
Yeah, and then up to 1,200. So if it's not getting there, you have one of two things. You either have a mass cylinder issue, which you would know from the beginning, but if you have a degrading pressure, you can assume it's probably brake fluid. So
yeah, it was basically, it would take 2 pumps to get that 1,000 for the set the line lock instead of one. So I'm like, all right, something's wrong. And that's when we talked about it and we changed the fluid. We bled it at the racetrack, let all the old fluid out, and it was instantly back to where it needed to be.
And sure enough, he comes back. He's like, "These are the best brakes I've had in years."
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, so like I said, I think I just slowly wore with it.
Yep.
You know, I didn't notice it.
Yeah, you start to
I didn't change the
accommodate
pads or anything. It was just the fluid.
And the worse fluid you run, the more this is going to become an issue. Dot 3 brake fluid is almost 100 degrees less wet boiling point. So all of this is going to happen faster. Again, like if you're at the track, put whatever new fluid you can in it because it's going to make a difference over some old worn out Dot 5.1.
Right.
But definitely pay attention to not only your maintenance schedule, but what fluid you're putting in it. And I think it's honestly just a good idea to just change. If you're dropping your transmission fluid, if you're dropping your oil,
Right.
I mean, it really only takes 1 to 2 quarts to fill up your system, and then you just know you have good stuff. And the other, point I wanted to make is as you start to lose pressure, I see this a lot in remote mount or like backwards mount those small master cylinders with the small reservoirs. Guys with dragsters and guys with really fast, chassis cars and stuff like that, they will have such a small reservoir. As that pressure goes down, you now have less pressure applying to the brake pads, and brake pads then get hotter and degrade faster. So it really perpetuates and loses the whole life cycle of the whole system when you don't stay on top of it. So on top of braking performance, you can expect to lose durability because you're just lightly dragging brakes versus stopping intentionally, which is important. That's why we're really hard on having people set up master cylinders and pedal ratio correctly from the beginning. So
yeah, absolutely.
it all goes hand in hand. Brake system is always the thing you forget about till you need it the most.
Yeah.
And then you're mad and you call your manufacturer, which is, 1 of 10. And we just want this to help everybody. Like I said, whether you have TBMs or you have another brand or you have factory brakes, just a good idea. Replace your fluid, and it's going to keep everything working better overall and improve the life of your system.
Right. When it goes all the way back to your daily driver, and again, we were talking about this weekend, like, Brett, you're an idiot. Why didn't you change your brake fluid? Like, every 2 years, I worked at Mercedes-Benz 15 years. Every 2 years, they recommend replacing your brake fluid because it absorbs moisture from the atmosphere.
Yep.
And then that breaks down the hydraulic fluid. So our race car is doing the same thing.
Yeah, there's multiple things at play there. And every time you have the cap off, it has a tendency to flash the fluid and all that stuff. So,
Right.
stay on top of it because it not only affects you, the durability in your pocketbook of replacing all those wear parts, but it also affects the guy in the next lane because if you barrel down 230 mile an hour and you can't stop, it could affect somebody else, including the track staff, the guy next to you, all that stuff. So we just want to see you guys stay on top of it, stay safe. And hopefully you enjoyed this Tech Tip Tuesday. You're going to see me or Brett or both of us a lot here in the future because we know you guys enjoy it, and it's good to share this information. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.